Yes. The second, literally, it turned on, and then I just hear, and then you're just looking at me all goofy, like you're not doing anything. Up to no good over there. It's crazy. All right. Um, hopefully there's no more disturbances. Uh, my number one hater is over there making noise, distracting me. Can't believe it. Can't believe it at all. All right, we're gonna do a quick stream. Some of the past few nights. Not gonna be like I promise you, one day I'll get back to the 4 hour streams. I really just haven't had time, and I've been exhausted lately. So yeah, it's a work in progress. But you know, hopefully this is at the point where like I can like justify streaming for 4 or 5 hours. Right now, it's like I don't know. It's like I could be doing better stuff with my time. But yeah, let me just check something real quick. Make sure okay. I said it. All right. So today we're gonna talk. I don't actually know much about this guy. Um, one of the one of my older mods, not just because of his age, but a guy that's been on the channel for a while was telling me to check out Terrence McKenna's stuff. From what I know about him, he was about consciousness alteration. Started reading Emerson. How do you like it so far? Isn't it the greatest thing ever? Like you can't tell me it's not some of the best writing you've ever read. Like there's just something in his words that carries so much weight. Can you turn off the air? Yeah. Every time I don't want it to be on, it is turned on. Yeah. So annoying. But yeah, from what I know about Terrence McKenna, he's about consciousness alteration. I think he was into like mushrooms and LSD, which is just like I don't know. I don't really have like there's some people that advocate that for everybody. I don't. There's certainly benefits to it, but there's a lot of drawbacks. So you know, that was muted. All right.
Novelty is not
But how do you like Emerson? Do you like it so far?
necessarily good or nice. Novelty is complex. That's what it is. And so I see really a concatenation of tendencies and forces
What
here
essay
at
have you
the
read so
end.
far?
It's only
Did you start with self-reliance? I think I told you. Whenever I suggest Emerson, I always say start with self-reliance. I think that's his best essay. Obviously, I haven't gone through them all, but that one really resonated with me the most. But yeah, even a few pages of Emerson, you're like, wow. I mean, you can read entire books by most philosophers, and you don't take away as much. When you read Emerson, you really have to digest it. Like I have a book that I think I've only gotten like 100 pages in, but it's taken me so much longer than it would take me to normally read 100 pages. Like 100 pages for me to read in a day is literally nothing. But 100 pages of reading Emerson, it took me multiple days because I had to sit on the information. I had to analyze it. I had to think about it. I had to conceptualize it. And it really was like, as I'm reading this, I have to stop and go like, holy shit. This is something I wanted to know my whole life and now I know it. It's kind of cool.
going to get weirder. The level of contradiction is going to rise excruciatingly, even beyond the excruciating present levels of contradiction. I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally, it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. And at that point, novelty theory can come out of the woods because eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on? It's
I think this was recorded. It said 98 at the beginning of the video. I think this is proven more right already. Like when you look at social media, what is going on? Like what is popular? What are people doing to debase themselves just for fame? It's pretty funny. I mean, when you think about it.
It's just too nuts. It's not enough to say it's nuts. You have to explain why it's so nuts. So between now and 2012, the next 14 years, I look for the invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, possible human immortality, and at the same time, appalling acts of brutality, genocide, race baiting, homophobia, famine,
I think we
starvation,
really just got the
because
second one.
the systems which are in
I
place
don't think we
to
really
keep
got,
the world.
I mean, if you look in terms of inventions, like, sure, computer processing has increased. Sure, we have more information than ever. And, but like the lifespan really hasn't gone up that much. Like the quality of life really hasn't gone up that much. Like, you know, I mean, there's more old people, but you go to an old folks home, it's not a happy place to be. I don't know. I wish like the innovations we're making in terms of science would impact the quality of life, would impact the way people are living well into old age. Because I don't know, to me, I really don't want to, wither away to nothing. I want to still be able to do stuff like till my last day. And maybe it's just overall lifestyle changes or lifestyle choices, but who knows?
Sane are utterly inadequate to the forces that have been unleashed. The collapse of the socialist world, the rise of the internet, these are changes so immense, nobody could imagine them ever happening. And now that they have happened, nobody even bothers to mention what a big deal it is. The fact that there is no such thing as the Soviet Union, people never talk about it anymore. But when I was a kid, the notion that that would
I can only imagine. Like, I don't think anyone my age really grasps this. I don't even grasp this. I don't really understand the significance of that. I mean, even 9/11, I don't understand the significance of it. Like, think of how many people signed up to the military that day after seeing that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like it's kind of just become something that we talk about, something that we're like, wow, we gotta remember, but actually being there and experiencing it, it's a whole other thing.
would ever change was beyond conceiving. So the good news is that as primates, we're incredibly adaptable to change. Put us in a desert, we survive. Put us in the jungle, we survive. Under Hitler, we survive. Under Nixon, we survive. We can put up with about anything, and it's a good
Nixon.
thing because we're
The
going to
funniest thing about Nixon is Nixon just pissed off the wrong people because basically, like, like a lot of people at that level do a lot of screwed up shit, and there's like a agreement, like a handshake deal. Is like, I won't reveal what you do unless you reveal what I do, and he just got on someone's wrong side, and he kept trying to lie through Watergate, just made it way worse, and now his entire legacy's tarnished.
to be tested to the limits. The breakdown of anything, and this is why the right wing is so alarmed, because what they see going on is the breakdown of all tradition, all order, all sanctioned norms of behavior. And they're quite right that it's happening, but they're quite wrong to conclude that it should be resisted or is somehow evil. The mushroom said to me once, it said, "This is what it's like when a species prepares to depart for the stars."
What are you? Like he didn't have to say the mushrooms. I was on board with him until he said
You
that.
don't depart for the stars
I
under
mean, it's an
calm
interesting
and
idea.
orderly conditions. It's a fire in a madhouse. And that's what we have, the fire in the madhouse at the end of time. This is what it's like when a species prepares to move on to the next dimension. The entire destiny of all life on the planet is tied up in this. We are not
You can tell this guy's like pure creativity. There's certain people when you talk to them, they're purely rigid, purely idealistic, and like, whatever they've learned, that's what they pull from. Whereas this guy likes to kind of just go with the flow. It's really interesting to start exploring people that have this sort of basis because for most of my life I was like, oh, if it's not written in a book, if it's not proven, then it's not correct. And it's like, um, how do you think the books got written? How do you think Newton discovered gravity or conceptualized gravity? I guess you would say. How do you think Einstein proved any of his theories? How do you think Tesla did any of his inventions? Same thing with Edison. I mean, it's like there's a certain like uncanny ability of certain people to just pull ideas from thin air that are changing for the rest of history. And it's like, why don't we embrace that? Why aren't we taught that? Why aren't we taught these skills? It takes some guy that does a bunch of mushrooms apparently to teach us these things.
Not acting for ourselves or from ourselves. We happen to be the point species on a transformation that will affect every living organism on this planet at its conclusion. Novelty theory is something I've been working on since the early 70s, inspired by psychedelic plant experiences in the Amazon, to attempt to look at time and really deconstruct it and attempt to understand what it is. And this has been
There's lots of interesting research. So this guy was 98. It was after all this stuff became legal, but like early on in the 60s, I want to say 60s, maybe it was 50s. There was a lot of research going on into psychedelics and the effects that it had on the human consciousness. And there was like a lot of promising studies that were, again, I'm not condoning this. I'm just saying this is what was happening. There was a lot of positive research for people with PTSD, for people with a lot of different issues, and basically it just got shut down one day. And there's various theories of why. Um, but it's unfortunate because whenever something kind of gets pushed to the background, you're gonna have people that do it irresponsibly. Whereas if you had it studied, I mean, it was being studied at Harvard. If you have people studying at Harvard, it's going to be in a controlled setting. People aren't going to be taking too much. People are going to be taking the actual real thing. So it's like very unfortunate that you just have these hippie people that are just taking this shit and being like, oh yeah, this is the measurement. This is this. Like, I don't know. Maybe there was some standardized research. I mean, if you really look into it, for thousands of years, people were altering their consciousness through drugs to try to get to a higher state. I mean, there's some theories that there's even entire religions that are based off of these psychedelic experiences. I don't know. You can gain the same level of awareness simply by meditation. It's just a thousand times harder, and that's what people won't tell you. It's so easy for people to go online and be like, "Oh my God, this changed my life." But if you just meditate every day for a year, you'll get the exact same awareness. It's really that easy. I don't know. It's weird.
been a wild intellectual ride leading to some pretty easily stated conclusions. One is that novelty, which is my term for complexity or advanced organization, novelty increases as we approach the present moment. The universe you and I are living in is a far more novel and complicated place than the early universe was. Well, some people would say, well, that's just a consequence of the unfolding of developmental processes. But this asks the question, what are
It's like throwing yourself in the deep end versus learning how to swim. Yes, yes. That's a perfect analogy on explaining. You know, it's so weird to me though that people will blanketly just suggest these things because, dude, there's thousands of people that are in insane asylums for taking psychedelic, psychoactive drugs. It's like I don't I don't think people should be irresponsible about giving these things out. Like, I mean, I guess there's no penalties for major corporations giving out drugs that they shouldn't, but I have a conscience. I wouldn't ever advocate for that.
developmental processes? Why should the universe have a preference for order over disorder, especially when we have something called the second law of thermodynamics, which tells us exactly the opposite? Physicists believe the universe is running down ultimately into a state of disorder. But what I see is everywhere the emergence of more and more complex forms, languages, organisms, technologies, always building on the previously achieved levels of complexity. So that was one of my insights. Coming out of that insight,
It's an interesting theory. It's just like it's not. I don't know. It's nothing where I'm like, wow, like you know what I mean. I read Jung and I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. This is like I could see it, but it doesn't really change anything. It's interesting. Don't get
was
me
the
wrong, but
further
it could
understanding
just be
that
this
this
isn't the stuff that
process
I'm
of
obsessed
complexification
with.
through time is not proceeding at a steady rate. It actually follows a kind of asymptotic curve. In other words, it's happening faster and faster. And this was a revelation to me because it allowed me philosophically to contextualize the human world and to understand that human technologies, languages, migrations, art movements, ideologies are not something different from nature. They're the same process that we see in the movement of continents, the evolution of new species of animals, except that these human novel emergent situations are happening much more quickly. So
This is there's like an interesting I think it was Robert Anton Wilson was talking about this, a similar idea. We was talking about the doubling of information really coincided with a lot of socioeconomic changes, religious changes, even changes in philosophy, belief systems. And you really see a lot of historical significant events happen when these doubling of information occurs.
I see the cosmos, if you will, as a kind of novelty producing engine, a kind of machine which produces complexity in all.
One of the easiest ways to think about this idea is that Bobby Fischer is probably seen as the best chess player ever, but Magnus Carlsen has a much better rating than Bobby Fischer, and he's studied every single game Bobby Fischer's ever played, and he knows the moves for the next 40 years after Bobby Fischer played. So he just has all these book moves in his head. So even if Bobby Fischer was a more skilled chess player than him, he has no chance against Magnus simply because Magnus has the past 40 years of experience learning all of the most famous games, most famous moves, the book moves, even studying Bobby Fischer's games. Like it's very interesting how everything kind of builds, everything kind of crescendos. So you can't even really compare people from the past generation when it comes to art.
All realms, physical, chemical, social, whatever, and then uses that achieved level of complexity as the platform for further complexity. Well, this explains our present circumstance. It explains the rush toward all forms of new technology and social organization in the new millennium. But you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that if the universe is complexifying faster and faster, a epoch, a time will come when this rate of complexification is occurring so rapidly that it will become itself the overwhelming phenomena in the world of three-dimensional space and time. And I call this the omega point, or the transcendental object at the
Yeah,
end of
this is
history.
starting to get interesting.
And I believe it is not
So he's
that
basically
far
saying
off
that
that
the transfer of information and exploring technology will eventually become so sophisticated that if you were to track it on a chart, it would immediately go up. Like there's no time element. Like we've invented everything. Whenever something is beginning to be thought about, we already have the next idea. It's a I mean if you take it out on a exponential graph, eventually this will happen. But it's like, do we destroy ourselves first? You know what I mean? You give a lot of technology to certain bureaucrats, certain generals. I think, there's a good chance the world gets ended, unfortunately. So, um, this is taking it in an idealistic sense. The issue is that, you know, whenever you have advanced technology, whenever you have something that can provide a lot of good to people, it usually gets monetized. It usually just, they rake the people over the coals that actually need these technologies, these. whatever tools or whatever it is.
With the
What's
emergence
up, Lovely
of
Kitty? How's everything?
global internet, a human population of several billions, an electronic noosphere, that we are now within the shadow of this transcendental object at the end of time. Our religions sense it. That's what gives them their apocalyptic intuitions. And I think the ordinary
That's not
man
true.
and woman.
So people have been saying the end is near since the beginning of time. I bet you the first day humans were around, someone said the end is near. Someone said it's going to come to an end. Like it's it's literally so frustrating. This is something that like people really need to hear because so many people are just paranoid that something's going to happen. Maybe it does happen, but why are you living your life in fear of that event? Why are you living your life in fear that everything's going to end? If everything's going to end, it just ends. I don't know why you have to be concerned about it. If you get hit by a car, you get hit by a car. You know what I mean? It's just it is what it is. I'm not gonna cross the street and be any more scared than I normally am. I'm gonna look both ways and just go. I'm not gonna be petrified, wait for the crosswalk. Like very weird.
In the street sense a kind of built-in acceleration to time itself. Well, rather than dismissing that or treating it as a psychological perception or something unique to our society, I took it as a basic perception about physics and have built elaborate mathematically defined theories around this idea, and then have found, to my astonishment, incredible congruences with other work. I'm thinking of the Mayan calendar and its cure.
I probably have to do more research on this guy. I'm not really sure everything he's contributed to. He's talking about mathematical models. Maybe he's Terrence Howard from 30 years ago.
Furious countdown like quality toward an extremely unique event that the Maya felt would occur in the same time frame that my own equations predicted, even though at the time I was unaware of the Maya. So what we have here is a new model of time based on a very real intuition that I think most people share, which is that time is speeding up, that human beings
Pretty sure it was just the age of Aquarius coming. Um, I don't even necessarily know what it means, but there's some astrological position that changed in 2020. I think that's literally what it is. I think it was just tracking that, which just means like big shifts usually. Happens every like 2150, 2150 years. I don't know why I said it like that.
are part of that process, and that the culmination of that process is now within the ven of historical time. In other words, I believe it will happen in 2012, in December, coincident with the same events that the Maya placed at
That
the
was
end
wrong.
of their calendar.
Unless it's
Even
currently
if I'm
happening, we
wrong,
don't know
even
about
if it's 100 years or 500 years later, these are still spans of time that, when compared to the
it. I mean, if
life
you
of the
think about it, things
planet,
have gotten
are,
pretty
are
crazy since 2012.
fractions of a percentage.
Like
So
people have become
whether
much more fractured, much more angry, much more unhealthy, much more sick in the head. Maybe there is some
you
balance here.
believe, as I do, that we can know the precise moment of this transformation of the world of time, or whether you believe it is simply coming soon and fast, really doesn't make that much difference. We are all gathered here at the end game of developmental processes on this planet. We are about to become unrecognizable to ourselves as a species.
This is
Our
Josh.
technologies, our religions, our science has pushed us toward this for thousands of years without us awakening to what the denouement would be. Now we stand close enough to it that I think all but
I mean, this is interesting, except his predictions are wrong. That's why when you make predictions, you got to be like more vague about things. That's the only way you get them right. That's why people think Nostradamus was like such a good like he had crazy predictions, he saw the future. It's because he made things pretty broad and it wasn't that like tailored, so like you can kind of pick and choose like, oh, this meant this, this meant this. Not saying he didn't have any right predictions. I haven't really looked into it myself, but if I was a psychic, I would be given the most vague nonsense ever. Be like, oh, if you want more specific stuff, you got to give me more money.
But the most lumpen among us must feel the tug of the transcendental and the transformative.
That's once. We started watching him yesterday, but we didn't finish. I didn't think the video was that interesting.
So then, here is a conception of nature.
So Alan Watts, I was literally on YouTube last night and I saw a short, and there was like an argument of someone's like, Alan Watts wasn't really that influential. He wasn't that great of a mind. He really just copied Taoist ideas and he just parroted himself. And I'm like, what? Like, why does it matter? Like he enlightened a lot of people to Eastern ideas and helped them kind of return to themselves. I mean, all Alan Watts really did was grasp Taoism and bring it to the West, grasp the ideas of the East, grasp the ideas that, you know, maybe we shouldn't be forcing ourselves to do things all day. Maybe we shouldn't create resistance. Maybe we should just live way, way, way more within our means. Maybe we should just seek simplicity instead of seeking complexity. And maybe that's what makes people happy in the end. All he did was bring that to the West, and it's just such a great thing. I don't know why anyone would say anything negative about it.
As something you must trust. Outside nature, the birds, the bees, the flowers, the mountains, the clouds, and inside nature, human nature. Now, nature isn't trustworthy completely. It'll sometimes let you down with a wallop. But that's the risk you take. That's the risk of life. What's the alternative? I do not trust nature at all. It's got to be watched. You know what that leads to?
The people that are the most resistant to change are the people that, have their lives uprooted the most. When you just see change as an opportunity to grow, then you can accept it. But if you're resistant to change, if you don't want things to become different, then it's going to slap you in the face when it does.
It leads to 1984 and Big Brother.
Osho said this. This is one of Osho's best quotes. The moment you stop changing is the moment you die. Think about how many people retire and they just, go about their lives, don't do anything exciting, don't do anything interesting. And, you know, did they really live that last 10 years of their life or did they just stay the same person? Did they stick with the same old habits? Did they do the same things? They didn't try to experience anything different. And what kind of life is that? What kind of life is you not going out and trying to experience everything possible, everything you want to? You know what I mean? It's not saying that you can't seek simplicity, not saying that you can't do the little things, but it's like, I mean, you gotta throw a wrench in it every once in a while.
It leads to the totalitarian state where everybody is his brother's policeman and where everybody is watching everybody else to report them to the authorities, where you can't trust your own motivation, where you have to have a psychoanalyst in charge of you all the time to be sure that you don't think dangerous thoughts or peculiar thoughts. And you report all peculiar thoughts to your analyst. And your analyst keeps a record of them and reports them to the government. And everybody is busy keeping records of everything. It's much more important to record what happens than what happens.
It's much more important to record what happens than happens. Think about when you go out to a club. Think about when you go out to a restaurant. Think about when you go anywhere. People are taking pictures instead of just enjoying it. I don't know. If you go on my phone, it's literally just me screenshotting hyraxes or marmots or animals. Like whenever I'm somewhere doing something cool, I'm present. I'm there. Like it's very rare where I'll go take a picture. It's unless someone asks me to, unless someone's like, send a picture of you doing this. That's the only way I'll ever take a picture of what I'm doing. Not saying this is a good thing because maybe I won't be able to remember it when I'm, 10 years older, 20 years older, but at the same time, at least I'm enjoying it. At least I'm there. At least I'm present. Think of how many people like fake their entire lives to look good on Instagram, but their real lives suck. Think of the influencers that, rent cars that, can't even drive. They're totaled and their engine doesn't work, but they sit in it. They pay $1,000 just to look cool online, and then it goes away, and they're like, well, now what? It's like I don't get it, man. I don't.
This is already eating us up. It's much more important that you have your books right than that you conduct your business in a good way. In universities, it's much more important that the registrar's records be in order than that the library be well stocked. After all, you know your grades are all locked up in safes, and they're protected from thievery and pilfering, and they're the most valuable property that the university has.
It is so funny. Think of the education system. It's like you're not encouraged to learn outside of what you're learning. You're not encouraged to ask questions. Like if you ask a question that's not in the curriculum, genuinely, every time that I've asked a question that I've had, it's always just brushed off because it's not part of the agenda. It's not part of the curriculum. My professor doesn't email me back with an answer after the class. Like it's very, very weird how little education is put forward in the education system. If it doesn't fit on the syllabus, then it's not taught. There's no practicality to it. They don't tell you to go read books that, can help you do certain things, can gain you certain skills. You know, like why isn't it mandatory reading in high school to read Think and Grow Rich? Why isn't it mandatory reading to read How to Win Friends and Influence People or Emerson or even fucking Walden? Walden would be a great book to give to high schoolers. We read a book that was inspired by Walden, but we didn't read the real Walden. Like there's this book called Into the Wild. It's an okay book. It is. It's a sad story of a guy that goes and tries to live out in the woods, and he unfortunately dies of frostbite or hypothermia, whatever the technical term is. But like the dude was inspired because he read a book that really taught him the secret to life. The secret to life is just simplicity, living below your means, living with the bare minimum so that you can appreciate what you have. And it's like, why don't we read books like this? Like, why aren't we taught like it's not even morality, it's not even a moral compass, it's just basic motivations for life.
The library can go hang. Then furthermore, the main function of a university is, what any sensible person would imagine, to teach students and to do research. So the faculty should be the most important thing in the university. On the contrary, the administration is the
My
most
class would
important
be
thing.
how would my class be terrible? My class would just be read Emerson and we're gonna talk about it. That would be the best class ever. I'd give one essay and I'd be like, okay, his essays are maybe 10 pages. Read this one essay and what does this mean in the context of your life? What does this mean in the overall purpose? Are you making decisions based off of who you are or who everyone else is, who everyone thinks you are? It's just these easy questions you can ask yourself, and I mean, this is the baseline of all philosophy, of all philosophical systems. People are trying to conceptualize the individual in terms of society and usually failing. Emerson's really the only one that hit at it, but one question. What's the question?
The people who keep the records, who make
I
the
don't eat dairy, so
game
no,
rules
we
up.
wouldn't,
And
we wouldn't have pizza parties. We actually maybe I no, I don't want to give dairy to people. Dairy is not really something anyone should really eat. I'd find a good snack to bring to people. Maybe sushi, but I'd have to order it and then have it delivered at the end of class so that it wouldn't become stale. Because one time I had a professor, dude, he spent all this money on sushi. He also got pizza. He got like wings, and like I tried the sushi and my stomach hurt for like the next 3 days just because it was out for too long. I love the guy, I really do, but it was not the best of times. My class sucks. Clearly, you haven't read any Emerson because if you've read any Emerson, you'd be truly inspired.
so the faculty are always being obstructed by the administration and being forced to attend irrelevant meetings and to do everything but scholarship. You know what scholarship means? What a school means, the original meaning of a schola, leisure. We talked of a scholar and a gentleman because a gentleman was the person who had a private income.
That's so fun.
And he could afford to be a scholar.
Leisure
He didn't
devoted
have
to
to earn a
learning.
living, therefore he could study.
When was the last time in a class that you had a second to just sit there and process the information, sit there and think about the information? The second you learn it, immediately ask questions. There's no time to discuss it with everyone else. There's no time to sit there and allow yourself to, decompress, allow your mind to relax, and then answer the question. Am I vegan? I'm not vegan now. Yeah, I mean, what would you rather have, pizza or actually care? That's the thing. I'd rather care.
The classics and poetry and things like that. Today, nothing is more busy than a school. They make you work, 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 because you get got through on schedule. They have expedited courses, and you go to school so as to get a union card, a PhD or something, so that you can earn a living. So that's a whole contradiction of scholarship. Scholarship is to study everything that's unimportant, not necessary for survival. All the
This is, I think this is the best explanation. I mean, it depends what you define intelligence as. I think intelligence is a mix of technical skills mixed with creativity. And technical skills is just like learning the basics, learning the laws, learning the rules, and then using your creative mind to combine that into genius, combine that into mastery. Trying to find a community I can talk about books with. Join my Discord. Come on, man. You can always talk to me about books. You want pizza and movies? Well, we could watch a few movies. I think there's a few movies that are very artistic that, do a lot with a little. I'd have to think about them, but The Graduate's one of those movies that you're watching and you're like, this isn't just a film. This is saying a lot. I mean, if you haven't seen it, it came out in the '60s, but the basis of the movie is that this guy just graduates. Obviously, he graduates college. He's like looking for a job, and then there's only three messages a day. That's because you don't say anything, Eddie. That's why there's only three messages a day. There's not always going to be three messages. Yeah, it's in the description. I'm trying to get it more active, but I think if we have like people talking every single day about books, dude, like pretty much all I do in my free time is read. So feel free to join that and talk about books. I think there's a few other people that would love that, and I don't know. I don't want to like require people to be active, but we might have to start like kicking people out if they're not responding. I think would that be a good idea, Eddie, to do? I have no idea. I have no idea how this works. So please, please. I just want to have a place where like if I see a cool quote in a book, I can send it and people are like, wow, that's awesome. It's not too much to ask. It really is. So
charming irrelevances of life. But you see, the thing is this: if you don't have a room in your life for the playful, life's not worth living. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. But if the only reason for which Jack plays is that he can work better afterwards, he's not really playing.
you don't have room in your life for the playful. Life is not worth living. Think of how many people push off all of their fun, all of their enjoyment, all of their happiness to a later stage in life. And the minute they retire, the minute everything is just by the books, by the plan, they don't know how to be happy. And it's like, was it worth it? Sacrifice all your time, all of your energy, all of your productivity, your productive years, sacrifice dinners with your family, vacations with your family. Like, in the end, was it worth it for whatever amount of financial gain you got? It would be a good idea since it's kind of inactive right now. Okay, okay. What if we do a poll is like, are you still active? And then we just kick out everyone that's not, that doesn't click yes. Because they could just rejoin if they get kicked out, right? As long as we don't ban them. What if we do that?
He's playing because it's good for him. He's not playing at all. You have to be able to be a true scholar. You have to cultivate an attitude to life where you're not trying to get anything out of it. You pick up a pebble on the beach, look at it. It's beautiful. Don't try and get a sermon out of it. Sermons in stones and God in everything be damned.
What's the feature? Explain it to me. I mean, like I've been trying for like years to this point to like figure out Discord. I just don't like. I don't know. I don't want to have to like force conversation every single day because I feel like I would just be getting annoying.
Just enjoy it.
But I can send a
Don't
message
feel that
every
you've
day
got
if I
to
want.
salve your conscience by saying that this is for the advancement of your aesthetic understanding. Enjoy the pebble. If you do that, you become healthy. You become able to be alive.
Should we just send a notification that like we're gonna do this? Because I don't want like anybody that just is passive to it. It's called pruning. Okay. I mean, we'll send a notification and we'll be like, it's you can always just rejoin. It's just you know what I mean?
Loving, helpful human being. But if you can't do that, if you can only do things because they are somehow you're going to get something out of it, you're a vulture. So, we have to learn. We don't have to, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go on living. But it's a great idea, it's a great thing, if you can learn what the Chinese call purposelessness.
He's going to explain Taoism right now. The basic idea is that there's no set purpose in life. Like you aren't born and you're forced into something. You don't have to really contribute to society if you don't want to. And it's like this is exactly what gives life meaning because you can spend your entire life doing whatever you want. You can spend your entire life living in a certain way because it makes you happy. And most people think this is like a haunting thing. Most people think like if there's no purpose to life, then it's meaningless. But it's one of the dumbest ideas because if there was a set purpose, then you would have to live a set way. But because you have free will, because you have freedom of choice, because you have freedom to do with what you want with your time, you have the responsibility to find that purpose. And this is like an idea that like a lot of people reject, but it's truly the most inspiring one when you accept this role, when you accept the idea that you're the only one that's going to make you happy. You're the only one that's going to bring purpose and meaning and fulfillment into your life. So start making decisions that give you all of these feelings. It's really just that simple. But
They
again,
think
it's
nature
not
is
really simple
purposeless.
in practice, but it's simple in
When we say something's
philosophy
purposeless,
or
that's put down.
thinking about it.
There's no future in it. It's a washout. But when they hear the word purposeless, they think that's just great. It's like the waves washing against the shore, going on and on and on forever with no meaning. A great Zen master said as his death poem, just before he died, "From the bathtub to the bathtub, I have uttered stuff and nonsense." The bathtub in which the baby is washed at birth, the bathtub in which the corpse is washed before burial, all this time I have said many nonsenses. Like the birds in the trees go, twee, 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 twee. What's it all about?
There's a video of Osho. Um, Someone asks him how he wants to be remembered, and he was like, "I want to be forgotten and forgiven." And basically, he was saying that the moment he's forgotten is the moment he can fully die. The moment that he can fully die is the moment he becomes in the infinite. And it's like it was really an inspiring thing. I don't think I did it justice because I can't speak as slow as Osho, and my eyes aren't like this. So
Everybody tries to say, oh, it's the mating call. It's purposeful. Trying to get their mate, attract them with a song. That's why they have colors. Butterflies have eyes on them. Self-protection. Engineering view of the universe. Why do that? They say, well, it's because they need to survive. Well, why survive? What's that for? Well, to survive. See, human beings, really a lot of tubes. And all living creatures are just tubes. And these tubes have to put things in at one end and let it out at the other. Then they get clever about it and they develop nerve ganglia on one end of the tube, the eating end, called a head. And it's got eyes in it, it's got ears in it, it's got little organs, antenna and things like this. And that helps
this guy drawing, you could tell he had so much fun doing
you
it.
to find things to put in one end so that you can let them out the other. Well, while you're doing this, you see the stuff going through wears the tube out. And so that the show can go on, the tubes have complicated ways of making other tubes who will go on doing the same thing, in at one end, out the other. And they say, well, that's terribly serious. That's awfully important. We've got to keep on doing this. But when Chinese say
that's the best way of breaking down existence.
nature is purposeless, this is a compliment. It's like the idea of the Japanese have a word, yugen, and they describe yugen as watching wild geese fly and be hidden in the clouds, as watching a ship vanish behind a distant island, as wandering on and on in a great forest with no thought of return. Haven't you done this? Haven't you gone on a walk with no particular purpose in mind?
Aren't those the best times when you just go on a walk and you have the rest of the day to kill and you don't have to be back at any time, you have no responsibility. You're just like smiling the whole time, you're just beaming the whole time. You don't know why. Is that just me that does this?
Carry a stick with you and you occasionally hit at old stumps and wander along and sometimes twiddle your thumbs. It's at that moment that you are a perfectly rational human being. You learn purposelessness. All music is purposeless. Is music getting somewhere? If it were, I mean, if the aim of music were, of a symphony, were to get to the final bar, the best conductor would be the one who got there fastest. See?
The best quote on the meaning of life was by Tolkien. Not all who wander are lost. And in those few words is the entire essence of living. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. It's about finding happiness in the day to day. Camus said, you have to imagine Sisyphus smiling as the rock falls back down the hill. Thanks, Eddie. Thanks for all the help, by the way. I really appreciate it. I don't think I've said thank you enough. Maybe I have. I don't. I remember I did at one point, but you did a lot more work. So thank you again. Like you're actually the best, man. I can't I can't say it enough times.
The dancing, when you dance, do you aim to arrive at a particular place on the floor? Is that the idea of dancing? Huh? The aim of dancing is to dance, is the present. Well, it's exactly the same with our life. We think life has a purpose. I remember the preachers used to say, when I was a small boy, I'd always hear it. We must follow God's purpose, his purpose for you and his purpose for me. When I asked these cats what the purpose was, they never knew. They didn't know what it was. They had a hymn. God is working his purpose out as year succeeds to year. God is working his purpose out and the time is drawing near.
It's, it's such a simple observation, but it's so true. Yeah, I'm glad that you like to help out. It sucks that it's just not like boom, like just working. But I think we're doing something cool. I think we're doing something unique. I mean, I was thinking about this. I think today, like, how would I even like describe my channel to people? I don't think I can. It's me, and it's me just having fun, and it's me just trying to spread positivity. And it's like I don't think I fit any one thing. Should put on some young stuff after this. I will. Okay. Yeah, this guy has some videos on Young that if I can find ones that we haven't reacted to, even
The
if I
time
have,
and the earth
it
shall
might
be
take
full of
somebody
the
different.
glory of God as the waters cover the sea. What's the glory of God? Well, they weren't quite sure. I'll tell you what it is. In heaven, all those angels are gathered round the glory of God. That is to say, the which than which there is no witcher. Catholics call it the beatific vision, the Jews call it the Shekinah. And they're all those angels. And they're standing around it and they're saying, Alleluia, 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 Alleluia. It means nothing. They're just having a ball. See, that's what happened in the beginning. When God created the universe, it was created like all stars, all planets, all galaxies. They're vaguely spherical. He created this and he said, have a ball.
Yeah, I wish this guy was still around. I would love to go to one of his lectures.
But
You don't really have people like this anymore.
before he said that, he said, you must draw the line somewhere. That was the real thing he said first.
We
Before,
used
let
to
there
have
be light,
Manly
let
P.
there be
Hall,
later.
Alan Watts,
First thing was, you must
people
draw
like
the line
that giving
somewhere.
lectures.
Otherwise,
Now we
nothing
have
will happen.
Jordan Peterson who
No,
just
you've got
gives
to
you
have the
the
good
most
guys and the bad
mild
guys. You've got to have
takes.
this, you've got to have that. The black and white, light and darkness. Must draw the line somewhere. Now, here's the choice then. Are you going to trust it or not? If you do trust it, you may get let down. And this it is yourself, your own nature, and all nature around you. There are going to be mistakes. But if you don't trust it at all, you're going to strangle yourself. You're going to fence yourself round with rules and regulations and laws and prescriptions and policemen and guards, and who's going to guard the guards, and who's going to look after Big Brother to be sure that he doesn't do something stupid. No go. Supposing I get annoyed with somebody in the audience, and I'm going to throw this ashtray at them, but I don't want.
I wish I could explain Taoism like this. Um, like I've read a lot about Taoism, I can't. My mind doesn't. Maybe it's because I haven't tried to live that way for that long. Maybe because it's like a gradual process to bring myself to simplicity. But I don't know, man. It's been like 7, 8 months of me like dropping ambition, dropping ego, dropping anything, trying to return to myself, and I've never been happy. I know I say this all the time, but I just keep getting happier and happier. I keep smiling more and more every single day. My life keeps getting better and better and better and better. The best thing is, it's not even the external circumstances. If you look at my life on paper, it's pretty average. It really is. But internally, I'm just beaming. Day after day, I go to sleep smiling. Like I don't want to go to sleep because I'm so happy. I don't want to go to sleep because I have to wake up the next day and I'm not going to be as excited as I am when I'm falling asleep. It's truly the greatest feeling of all time. Uh, what's this? We'll see if there's anything good right away. How is that? 10 minutes. What were we watching the other day? Should we watch a 10-hour? Oh wait, it's an audiobook. Guys, we're gonna watch a 10-hour audiobook and I'm gonna pause it every 20 seconds to react for 5 minutes. How long do you think that would take? This is the one we were watching the other day, but it was kind of getting boring. All right, we'll just go with the first one. I just want to make sure we're gonna miss a good video.
Eternalized.
Not saying this is gonna be good, but
Swiss psychiatrist and psychologist Carl Gustav Jung is the founder of analytical psychology and revolutionized the field with his in-depth exploration of the unconscious. Through his confrontation with the unconscious, he explored the dark side of human nature, while many denied.
so Jung and Freud are credited with the unconscious. Um, Freud understood there was an unconscious, but Freud was very limited by thinking everything that affected the unconscious was sexual, and if he couldn't figure out the exact sexual tie, it was psychosexual. Like this sounds like a joke, this sounds like a cope, but this is like actually what he believed. And he really the thing about Freud was he was unwilling to look at himself, unwilling to look at his own biases and his own issues and resolve those issues. So inherently he was projecting them onto his clients. Whereas Jung himself went through like a deep psychological journey with his own unconscious, faced all of his fears, faced all of his demons, and because of this, he was able to actually, deal with his clients, deal with people, and treat them as people, treat them without any biases, without any preconceived notions. And I think you see this in a lot of his work because he's willing to admit he's wrong. He's willing to admit where he went wrong or that he doesn't quite understand everything. Because the truth is, the unconscious is so deep that we can only get the breadcrumbs. But if we can pick up some of those breadcrumbs, there is a vast, vast ocean of information in there. And it's like, even if you have a dream, you try to analyze it, you only get one piece of it. That's still something that can really change your life. Some of the things I'm adding include that keeps track of level. that you can play with, which you can get money in the server. Oh, is it like it's not like a real currency, right? I don't really want that. It's like it's just like if you send a message, you get like a token or something. Is that what it is? Just like a fake thing? 'Cause I'm cool with that, if that's what it is.
and focus solely on the light side,
But I
as
don't
I
really
feel
want the
that we
Discord
all
to be
go
like a
through
paid
dark
thing.
times, as we're
I want my
gradually
school to be that.
assaulted and overcome by the trials and tribulations of life. Jung writes, "It is high time we realized that it is pointless to praise the light and preach it if nobody can see it. It is much more needful to teach people the art of seeing." It is becoming increasingly more common to
Okay,
display
okay.
only the pleasant
Yeah, that's cool.
parts
That's a
and
good idea.
highlights of our lives. This
What
broad-sightedness creates an artificial
is it just like a ranking system or can you like unlock emojis? Because I know that's I don't know if that's a feature of Discord. I know that's maybe Twitch has that. I don't know.
view of life in which our dark side is buried and considered taboo in society. And
It's
as
not
we
a big
see
deal
other
either way. Don't
people with their
don't do any
seemingly
more
amazing
work than you have
lives,
to.
we
Don't.
become even more resentful and disappointed with ourselves. We see our behavior as socially unacceptable and try to conceal our emotions and contradict our
So all the shadow is the parts of yourself that you're unwilling to accept, the parts of yourself that you're unwilling to show society for whatever reason. Let's say your boss keeps giving you a lot of work and you're pissed off at him. You're getting so angry, but you're not going to scream at him and lose your job. So you bottle this up, and this energy doesn't go anywhere. It stays within you, and it starts to rise and rise and rise, and it crescendos, and eventually it crashes out, and you know you scream at him one day. You scream at him, just for no reason. This is the best explanation of it. But it's facing our shadow, finding the energy inside of us, finding the anger inside of us, finding the emotion inside of us, and putting it to something good. For a lot of one of the greatest things I see, especially for young men, is I see a lot of guys that are super angry, super pissed off, super just fed up with life, and then they find martial arts, they find jujitsu, and they can put all that anger, they can put all that aggression into that sport, and then they can become obsessed with it, and then they can get better, and then they can show like, hey, I can get better at this, now I can get better at other stuff in my life, and it really, really calms down that energy of like going out to a bar and trying to fight people. I mean, I'm not just talking for myself. I've seen it with a lot of other individuals where this was a big, big, big needle mover for them.
real self. This forms the persona, a false social mask that makes us appear more likable to others to the detriment of our mental stability, and which ends up negatively affecting our whole life. We unconsciously let other people live our life for us, and we become inauthentic, mere numbers in the crowd. It is impossible to progress towards self-realization if we are presenting ourselves as someone different to who we really are. When we realize that we have been living a lie, the false mask
This picture is wrong because it's not just him, it's everyone. Everyone gives a little bit of themselves up for conformity to, keep up with the Joneses, to keep your job, to do all these things. Like there's parts of ourselves that we'll never let into the open simply because it's not respectable, it's not polite. But it's our challenge, it's our duty to find ways to integrate these parts of ourselves. So for a lot of people, it's like some sort of creative expression, some sort of creative outlet. So could be jujitsu, it could be the gym, could be painting, it could be writing, could be running. Like there's all of these ways to basically get this emotional energy, this expression, this need to be seen, need to be heard out. And a lot of people aren't doing enough or putting it in the right things. Because of this, a lot of people just don't figure it out. And then they wonder why they're unhappy. They wonder why they're stressed out. They wonder why they're depressed. It's really just any sort of depression is just from your true self not being heard, your true self not being aligned with who you're putting out to the world.
shatters, and we come face to face with the emptiness of ourself, which may result in an existential crisis. Authenticity opens the path towards self-realization. With a radically honest view of life, we can progress towards psychic wholeness by acknowledging our dark side that most people cannot bear to look at.
Nietzsche said for a man to reach no, for a tree to reach heaven, its roots have to be in hell. You have to be open to the idea of the evil inside of you, accept it, bring it to the light, and use it for good. Like I'm a person that um gets frustrated really easy. I'm a person that I wouldn't say I'm short tempered, but like it's really easy to rile me up, and I can get angry, or I could use that energy for good. I could use that energy to, film a video, stream, write, like go train, go to the gym. You know what I mean? It's like it's all about how we express ourselves. It's all about how we express this energy. And notice how I keep using emotions and energy interchangeable, because they're the same thing. Emotions are just responses to the energy that we have. And our brain can decide what emotion we're going to have. Like, this is why sometimes when you get bad news, you get angry or you get sad. It's you dictating that. And you can also just be like, you know what? I got all this anger right now. Why don't I go to the gym? Why don't I go get a workout? Why don't I go on a walk? Clear my head. Like, we can always find a way when we're upset, we're angry, and we're fed up to calm ourselves down. It's really that simple. What's up, Vitor? Vitor. My bad. I don't know why I said Vitor.
That we mustn't repress our darkness, but rather confront it. Nobody is perfect, and taking responsibility to acknowledge this can bring
Jung's
relief to
famous
others and a
quote,
feeling that they are not alone.
or summarizing Jung in one quote, is what you suppress will be expressed, or what you repress will be expressed. So anything you try to hold back, any sort of anger, any sort of emotions, it's going to come out in another form, one way or another. May not be with the same person, may not even be for years, may not even be something you remember, but it's going to come out. And this is why it's so important to understand these ideas.
Alone. Jung writes, "There's no light without shadow, and no psychic wholeness without imperfection. To round itself out, life calls not for perfection, but for completeness, and for this the thorn in the flesh is needed."
Completeness is just acceptance. So what he means in completeness is you recognize your flaws. You try to use them for good. That's it. Um, every flaw has an equal benefit to it, and every good attribute has an equal downside. For Alexander the Great, it was his ambition. His ambition drove him to conquer the world, but his ambition was the thing that also got him killed. Same thing with Caesar. Caesar was ambition as well. Caesar was made dictator, wanted to become dictator for life, and that's what led to his downfall. Every single good trait has bad characteristics. Every single bad trait has good characteristics. You know, I'm bald, so you see more of my beautiful forehead. But yeah,
The suffering of defects, without which there's no progress and no ascent. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The persona, as well as all our defects, insecurities, repressions, and memories long avoided, feed and form our shadow, the unknown dark side of our personality. The shadow is everything which one has no wish to be. It follows us around all our life, both literally and metaphorically.
every single person has shadow. Shadow, it's always changing. It's always shifting. Some things will always be there if you never address them. But the moment you address something, something else comes up. The only way to completely remove the shadow is to become enlightened. So unless you're Osho, unless you're Buddha, unless you're Jesus, unless you're Lao Tzu, unless you're any quote unquote enlightened person throughout history, you're never going to quite get over the shadow. But it's just understanding the shadows there and understanding that you don't have to be afraid of the shadow, for lack of better words. You don't have to, shun these traits. One of the biggest things for guys is like guys have this idea that they can't cry. Guys have this idea that you can't show emotion, and it's not even that you have to cry. It's just, I mean, you can tell the people in your life how much they mean to you. You can tell your friends like, "Thank you so much for helping me out through this time." Like that doesn't make you any less of a person. If anything, it makes you a stronger person. It's just the idea that you can't show any emotion, the idea that somehow, some way this takes away from your manhood. It's very restrictive and it's very repressive, and because of this, a lot of people are dealing with pent up emotion, pent up rage leads to a lot of things that really shouldn't happen, and it's quite unfortunate.
We may try to ignore it consciously, but it will always form a part of our unconscious personality. It is not some detached thing that can be avoided. It is a part of you. To go against the shadow means to go against yourself. We are all capable of good and evil. That is the only reality. It is important to know how much good we can do, and what crimes we're capable of. And knowing this, choose not to do evil. That is the true.
This is the idea of, I mean, it's really encapsulated best in Nietzsche's, the title of Nietzsche's book, Beyond Good and Evil. We all have our own subjective ideas of good and bad, and we all try to justify ourselves. We all try to say, like, well, I was an asshole in this scenario because of this person, because of this, because of that. But you have to recognize that you were an asshole. You have to recognize that you have the capability to be a dick, even if it is justified. And that's still not right. It's like accepting these realities, accepting, like, you know what? Maybe this person didn't act like a grown up, but I didn't either. Coming to that realization is very, very, very important.
True moral position. The shadow is commonly mistaken as an enemy or evil entity. However, it is really exactly like any human being, who sometimes resists or sometimes gives love, whatever the situation requires. The shadow becomes hostile only when it is ignored or misunderstood. A frequent nightmare consists in being chased or confronted by a scary monster or shadowy figure, but when one confronts the figure and questions it, it starts to take on an amiable appearance. To honor and accept our shadow is a profound spiritual discipline. The shadow of an aggressive person contains tenderness, relatedness, and sincerity, while the shadow of a shy person would be assertive.
This is the idea of projection. So a lot of people, whatever trait they're most insecure about, whatever thing they don't want to embrace, whatever thing they were told not to be, they become the opposite. And you see, like, this bunny behind a evil person, or the shy person, you see a tiger. This is why passive aggressive people are usually the most, or not passive aggressive people, people that are always nice to everyone, people that can never say a bad word to you in public, are usually the people that are plotting against you the most, the people that are, the snakes in the grass, for lack of better words.
Responsible, and confident. It has a compensatory role and represents everything that we lack. The shadow contains pure gold as psychological insight, waiting to be integrated into our personality. This inner gold is all our potential and ideal self, which we all look up to in life and strive to become. And for that reason, the shadow is our ally in the journey of life. The less we acknowledge our shadow, the more it is liable to burst forth suddenly in a moment of unawareness. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied.
Your shadow takes over when, think of when you're having a good day, think of when you're calm, someone cuts you off in traffic and you're like, motherfucker, what the, like, you know what I mean? That's your shadow. That's your repressed anger. That's your evil side of yourself coming out.
In the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. In the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Jekyll tries to repress his dark side, but instead ends up giving life to his shadow, Hyde, who takes control over him as an autonomous personality and performs evil acts against his will. The dissociation takes on the form of a physical change, rather than, as in reality, an inner psychic state. It must be us who integrates our shadow and not the other way around. We talk about being able to control ourselves, but self-control is a rare and remarkable virtue. The result of ignoring our shadow is psychological projection, where we unconsciously attribute our own unacceptable thoughts and feelings to other people. Projection is always easier than assimilation. By pointing our finger to other people, we reduce the discomfort and anxiety about ourselves and avoid taking.
Every time you judge someone, you should point the finger at yourself first. Whatever you're usually going to judge someone for, it's an insecurity you have in yourself. So if you want to see people's biggest insecurities, just look what they make fun of people for. That's a clear indication of something that they don't feel quite comfortable about. Like, think of the girls that always insult other girls' looks. Think of the guys that insult other guys' intelligence or strength, or, you know, whatever it is. There's usually something there. It's not usually direct. Sometimes it is there direct. Sometimes it is really there. Like, I mean, maybe you're really ugly and you always insult people's looks because you want to feel better about your own. Or maybe you're very attractive, but you don't think you're as attractive. Like, the person you see isn't as attractive as the attention you get. So it could just be an insecurity from that. There's lots of interpretation. So it's not a blanket statement, like it's not end all be all. There is some nuance with it, but it is a good indication of the person's biggest insecurity.
Taking responsibility to admit that we are in the wrong. Our world takes on an illusory existence, and what is being spun is a cocoon, which in the end will completely envelop us. This can also negatively affect the relationships we have with our friends or loved ones, which we often take for granted.
One of the um, one of the greatest parts, there's this book called The Four Agreements, and one of the greatest sections is don't don't take things personally, because when someone is insulting you, when someone's doing something to you, no healthy person is going to go out of their way to be disrespectful. No person that is completely whole, completely healed is going to treat you poorly. So don't take it personally because it's just something unresolved with themselves. And when you forgive others, you can forgive yourself. As Jung say about dreams, you heard about angelic nature impinging on our own imagination. You talking about anima? Is that what you're talking about? Jung, when Jung talks about dreams, Jung leaves it really open. Freud is very restrictive. So Freud said that anytime you have a phallic object in your dream, that's repressed homosexuality. And then his daughter was like, "Didn't you say you had a dream about a cigar?" And he's like, "Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar." Whereas Jung was more willing to look at the context of the dream and the context of the person's life. So basically, you can grasp certain messages from that. It's really something that if I were to interpret your dreams, not saying I ever could, not saying that I'm qualified, but like I would have to know a lot about you. So it's something that if you're going to do it on yourself, you have to know everything about yourself. You have to be completely honest with yourself and be like, what does this really mean? And you might not even get the whole interpretation, but if you get like I said earlier, if you get a breadcrumb of it, it's enough to give you a tremendous transformation. But yeah, was the second part talking about the anima? Because the anima is just your shadow. It didn't talk about that in this video, but most of the unconscious, most of the actually not most of the unconscious includes the collective unconscious, but there is like an angelic figure in a man's unconscious, and it's basically the personification of all traits they don't have, and it's impressed on the entire other gender. And it's generally shaped by mostly your mother because think that's the female that you spend the most time with, and it's also shaped by your relationships, shaped by your interactions, but that's on a lesser scale. But a lot of the issues that comes with an anima is usually from the mother. It's usually they were either too loving or not loving enough, and there's like a million different lists on all the different anima types and how to get over these things. Actually, where is it? I don't have it with me right now. It's behind me, but the Laws of Human Nature gives a really good synopsis of all the different types of it. If you don't think you're attractive, it's okay. I'm just not my own type. I would hope I'm not my own type. That'd be very weird. One of my what was his name? Narcissist? Because that's the guy that named it after,
We
I
do not
guess.
value what we have until we lose it, and once we do, the whole world takes on a dark appearance, and we fall into a depression, filled with sadness, self-hatred, and regret. Projection can also appear collectively when people think it is they who are wrong and they who must be fought against. The tendency to see one's shadow out there in a specific person or a group of people is the most dangerous aspect of the modern psyche. The collective shadow ultimately leads to war, economic chaos, strikes, racial intolerance, and more. The scariest part.
This is the saddest thing. People go online, it's all pointing fingers, it's all looking at what other people do, but there's no look on the internal. What good does it do to judge someone else? What does it how does it possibly improve your life? Wow, someone believes something you don't like. Wow, someone did something you didn't like. Unless it directly affects you, you just ignore it. You know what I mean? I only concern myself with my own business. I only concern myself with myself. I want to become the best person I can be so that I can be the best person to everyone around me. I want to be the inspiration. Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in this world. These people should figure it out. I'm talking about both sides. I'm not just talking about one side. It's, dude, can Twitter just go back to like shit posting? I'm just getting the worst political takes I've ever seen from both sides, and I just want it to end. I just want to go on Twitter and laugh. Want to go on Twitter and smile. Both sides are saying the world's coming to an end. It's like, shut the fuck up. I don't want to hear it. I hate politics. It's so fucking stupid. Like, if you put the same amount of time into politics that you put into yourself, where would you be? If you devoted yourself to your passion, where would you be? You'd probably be there. We allow ourselves to get distracted, get wrapped up in political takes, political opinions, political discussions. We argue online with random people we'll never meet. Where does it get you? It gets you nowhere. So frustrating. So frustrating. It's not even worth having a conversation about politics nowadays. It really isn't. Because it just, unless you get your news from the same source I get my news from, we're never going to come to an agreement. I don't even look at news, but like, that's just a general statement. It's so frustrating.
Part is that people are entirely unaware of being immersed in it. Our good qualities remain dormant until we acknowledge the existence of our personal shadow. All our energy lies in our shadow, and ignoring it makes us feel lifeless, exhausted, and lazy.
All this is saying is that until we can accept our bad qualities, we'll never let our good qualities show because we're too ashamed. We're never willing to be ourselves. We're never willing to drop the facade, drop the mask, be authentic because we're trying to hide this part of ourselves. And it's just something you got to face. Everyone has it. The moment you face it, the moment you accept it is the moment you're free. That's simple. How long are we streaming for? We're streaming for hour 15. All right, I'm gonna end this now because I'm getting tired. I'm gonna stream again tomorrow. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thank you guys for having a good time.